Hey, hello everybody, it's Adrian here live with the Life Mastery Show, and I am sitting here in my vehicle at the beach front in Byron Bay. I'm just going to show you the ocean. The whales are jumping, the dolphins are swimming, and I've had a really full busy morning here in Byron Bay, and I was looking for a spot to do this Life Mastery Show from. I thought, what better place than sitting right in front of the ocean here in Byron Bay, main beach, with whales jumping and breaching in front of me, and just tuning in to this wonderful show on this Thursday lunchtime here in Australia. So wonderful to have you here if you're listening in, and for those people listening to the recording, absolutely welcome to you too. So yeah, just down here in Byron Bay, last night I gave a presentation down here with my friend Stephen about Swig Skyway Invest Group, and I've just had a business breakfast meeting this morning from 10 a.m. until about 11:30, so it was a quick dash in my car to the beachfront here in Byron Bay, and now just sitting here in my car. It's pretty warm down here, and just great to be on here. So for those of you who've been on the show before, you know the drill, that if you have any questions with regard to life mastery, with regard to living life and to expanding life, to life growth, then please do ask your questions by typing in the questions. Remember, this is public. It does go out to many hundreds of people, so only share what you are comfortable sharing, but it does go public. If you want to be more private, then please do contact me privately, and we can have a conversation to support you on your journey. So if you have any questions, and remember, I'm not doing the psychic work. I'm just not tuning into that people on the other side to get my messages. This is all about direct question answer from that life mastery perspective, to see if I can support you from my experience of my coaching, my counseling and my psychotherapy work over the last 20 plus years. So if you do have any questions around vocation work, relationship, spiritual journey, last week there were quite a few questions on how to work within the spiritual realm, how to work within spiritual development. So they're always really good questions. There was a lot of last week on boundary work. How do we set those spiritual boundaries, and how do we stop getting sucked dry if we're working in the empath space? So if you have any questions around that today, please also ask those questions. So this can be on anything physical, emotional, mental, spiritual, vocational, sexual, relationship, educational, financial, whatever aspects you have in your life to do with growth and expansion, because this is all about growth and expansion every single day of our lives. The idea of becoming more conscious from that holistic perspective. So that's what I love to work in. So I've got Michelle, lovely. I used to do this work too. Fantastic. So great that you used to do the work, and hopefully you're still doing that on a personal perspective every day to help yourself grow as well. So it's wonderful to help others, but what often I say to people is, if we're helping others in that space of personal or spiritual growth, what are we doing ourselves? Are we walking the talk? Are we authentic in terms of our physical, emotional, mental and spiritual growth in a daily perspective? So just to give you a bit of a background, and this is not to float my goat, this is not to put myself on a pedestal, but just to let people know that to the best of my ability, with a few flaws, because I'm human, I do try to walk my talk. So from a physical perspective, I got up quite early this morning. I was down at sunrise in Byron Bay this morning, parked up, did a 4K run to the lighthouse and back, and watched a few whales. Came back to my car, drove back about halfway up the lighthouse, parked, ran back up there with my didgeridoo. I played a bit of meditation out towards the ocean for the whales for about 15 minutes. Then came back into Byron Bay, and then had a really healthy breakfast. Met up with some people. I had a business breakfast to do some business work, and now I'm here on this show. So from a conscious perspective, I've done things physically for myself this morning, spiritually by playing the didgeridoo in my meditations and tuning into nature, and then from a mental capacity, I went to a business lunch to get that business mindset happening. So the physical, the emotional, the mental and the spiritual all there already, and it's only midday. So I'm just hoping people still continue that journey, particularly if you're in the teaching space, because it's really important to hold our own as teachers. So if you're in that teaching space, the question would be, what do you need to do next to take yourself to the next level? Because as we know, there's always another level. So just looking to see if there's any questions coming up here. Michelle, My journey has been amazing. Yeah, wonderful, good, fantastic. Yeah, it's great to have an amazing journey, amazing life, because for me that's the aim. In terms of life mastery, can we wake up every day and step into that 80-20 or 90-10 principle? Physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, sexually, intimately, relationship, vocational, job-wise, socially, with family, with friends. Because the aim of that is a pretty amazing aim every single day. And I certainly aim to do that for myself every day. Some days are not great days, and I have to really pull myself together with my mindset to change old stories, to change old paradigms, to change old ways of being, to bring myself into alignment with who I am. So yeah, that's what I do on the Life Mastery Show, is to help people get in tune, get on track and stay on track. And it really, really helps to have a few questions coming in. So if you do have a question, let's know. So Michelle, do you feel anything or messages? I'm a mentor too, so I have to go on read only. So what I do, Michelle, just quickly, I don't tune into the spiritual side of things, the psychic side of things, and tuning into getting messages from the other side. I'll tell you, bringing it back to yourself to empower you in the process. If you would like to receive a message, what would that message be? So let's turn that around. If there was a message of some sort, in what aspect of your life would like that message in? Is it vocational? Is it spiritual? Is it emotional? Is it physical? Is it relationship? So I'm all about getting the clarity. Absolutely getting clarity. Yeah, absolutely getting clarity on the question, because with clarity and questioning becomes consciousness. So when we ask, so your mum, so the question would be, Michelle, what is a question around your mum you'd like to ask or to get asked? Do you have a specific question? Because I love to bring consciousness into questioning. I think it's one of the most powerful things we can do to get away from being generic and to get crystal clear on the question and crystal clear on the answering. Because that's crystal clear consciousness, and that's what I really work with people to do. So I try to work out of the generic space and try to get crystal clear clarity in the question, because that's when the consciousness really comes home from another perspective. I'm getting messages from Mum. Can you clarify? No, Michelle, unfortunately no, because I'm not working in that space. I don't do the medium space on the show where I take messages from the other side, because it's just not what I do on the show. But my question would be for you is, can you sit in your solitude? Can you sit in a meditation space and talk to your mum directly? Can you empower yourself to do that? Can you really learn to listen to the messages coming through rather than relying on somebody else? And this is no disrespect to people who do that work, because I know some fantastic mediums out there who do that. But in light of this show, can you sit in that quiet space and open up to the messages coming in from your mum and really ask what that is, so it's specific for you? And what are the questions for you? What are the answers for you? Maybe sit and have a pen and a paper ready, so that when you hear the messages coming through, you can write them down and get clarity on them. So that's the empower. I get that often. I've got my guides, and it's about me listening and me tuning in. I do, occasionally go to people for that tuning in if I can't quite get the message for myself. But we all have that ability, and it's about challenging ourselves to be educated in that space to listen. Because the more we listen to spirit, the more wisdom we get through, and then we're not so reliant on others. Not that I want to put people out of a job. Let's get clear on that, because there's some great mediums out there. So yeah, absolutely. Isa, my sister, well, she's scared. My sister. So Isa, same again. I'm not doing spiritual mediumship work on this show. I refrain from doing that. I let the others do that who do that well. For me, it's all about the self-empowerment of you tuning in and connecting for yourself without being reliant on me to give you the answers. So, was your sister scared when she passed? That would be a question of what her spiritual beliefs were, because a lot of people, when they're ready to cross over the threshold, it depends on their belief system. What did your sister believe when she was going over the threshold? Did she believe in going somewhere? Did she believe in going to another realm, in that spiritual realm? Was she comfortable to go there? And if she was, she probably wasn't scared, because she would have felt the presence of that angelic realms. A lot of the fear that people suggest people have in that death throe of the last couple of days in death, in those 2 or 3 days of transitioning from the physical over the threshold, so much wisdom can come in that 3 days. So a lot of those fears can dissipate, particularly people who are asleep or in comas. Something happens in that transcendental space of those 3 days where they get to meet the beings and they get guided over the threshold. So the fear does dissipate, from my understanding and from my research and from my experiences through meditation. So a lot of people don't go into the space in fear. They are still, when they're in the physical body, there's fear, but when they start that passing process, which often is, a 2 or 3 day process, the fear can dissipate a lot. So, to put you in a mind of rest, she probably wasn't in fear, but a lot of it would depend totally on her belief system as well. So maybe, tune in, Easter, and ask her and tune into the spirit of her and just get a sense of whether she was scared or not. You probably know your sister better than others, so you might know that question. Yeah, Michelle, I'm a great medium. Fantastic, good to hear it. And what else have we got? We had somebody else. Sally, done your gut health. Yeah, gut health is really important. It's really important to know what's going in, what's coming out of the body. And for me, looking after the physical health, part of that is doing what I call the gut gardening. What are we setting up in the gut garden? Because there's so much going on in the gut. And depending, if we're putting Coca-Cola and McDonald's into the garden, what are we really saying about that? We're not putting organic compost into the garden, we're putting rubbish into the garden. So nothing's going to really grow from that gut flora perspective. So about being really conscious of what's going into my flora, my gut garden, my belly garden. Am I putting good quality organic compost in there to help things grow? Or am I putting, chemicals in there and rubbish in there that's going to kill the bacteria, kill the flora in my gut? Because it's a choice. At the end of the day, everything we do is a choice. And gut gardening, I call it, is really important. What's going in? What's the conscious choice of what's going in? Every time you drink that alcohol, every time you have that Coca-Cola, every time you put something with sugar, if you think on the microcosmic level and get an image of what's happening in the garden, in the gut, what are you really doing in there? What's really happening in there? You imagine going out into your back garden with all your roses and all your calendula, and rather than putting organic compost in, imagine putting poison out there. And that's the difference of what we put into the gut flora in our own internal garden. I think it's a really good image to have. So when I'm doing my internal gardening, I'm really cautious of what I put in there. And so I've been on the journey for many, many years, and I choose vegetarian, choose almost vegan, but also I choose flexitarian. Because occasionally I step out of that space, sometimes culturally and sometimes just by choice because I feel like it. So I like the idea of being a flexitarian a little bit, but living that 90-10 principle or 95-5 principle. I think that's also important, so I'm not caught up in something where I'm limited in what I want to do as well. So great way to think about it. Yep, I really like to get anecdotal stories. Sally, I like to get images for people to work with, pictorial images, in terms of what we're actually doing for ourselves, physically, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually. And I have a great saying. I love to sharing this one, and maybe get a pen and paper and write this one down, put it on your fridge. If it's not invited, it's not allowed in. So just be cautious of what you invite in, whether that's physical, emotional, mental, or spiritual. So I'm quite cautious of what I invite into my life from all those aspects. And if it does come in, I'm the one that's let it in. So I have a very clear, conscious boundary about what I want and do not want in my life. Whether that's people, whether that's situations, whether that's food, whether that's liquids, whether that's thoughts, whether that's emotions. Just being very conscious of what I let in. So I hope that helps. So any more questions out there? I can yarn all day long. I'm sitting here in a bit of perfection. I'm sitting out here at, I'll just show you what I'm sitting next to, if you can see. Byron Bay Beach. I'm at the main beach in Byron Bay. Been down here for a couple of days, and it's just absolutely beautiful. I saw about 16 or 18 whales jumping around this morning. Saw some dolphins and a couple of baby dolphins in the waves, and it's just absolutely glorious here. And just had a meeting here last night to give a presentation on Skyway Invest Group, which I'm part of, for the financial component of my life mastery work. So over the last 12 months I've been doing lots of financial literacy, because I felt that was a little bit that was missing in my life. I do lots of spiritual work, physical work, and the one thing that was keeping me down in terms of that 90-10 principle was my financial education, my financial understanding, my financial freedom. So I made a conscious choice about 18 months ago to open up to doing some financial literacy and financial education, and then something came along in my life called Skyway Invest Group, or SWIG, just over 12 months ago, and it's been life-changing for me. So now I'm spreading the word and getting that out there in my communities, and Byron Bay is part of my community. I lived down here for 9 years. So I was down here last night giving a presentation, had a business breakfast this morning, presenting that again, because part of consciousness and part of getting stress out of one's life is to get the finances in alignment. And I've been a bit flippant with finances in my life, sort of easy come, easy go, and not understanding the investment process, not really understanding stocks and shares, not understanding how people get early investments and pre-IPOs and all that other language. So I've been educating myself, and it's been an amazing education, and I'm deepening that education every single day. So it's been quite an amazing journey. Michelle Jones, I've got to go now. Good luck, keep going on, you're doing well. Love supporting all readers doing this. Yeah, fantastic. You should stop by Old Stonehenge. Oh yeah, there's that Stonehenge up on the northern tablelands in up near Grafton on the way to Armadale. If it is, I've been there several times and love being up there. I've actually been to Stonehenge in England many times. I was back there in the 80s before it was fenced off at many festivals when I was living in the UK as a young man. So I know Stonehenge in England very well, but I also know Stonehenge up there in the northern tablelands as well. So it's a absolutely amazing place up there in, just name escapes me, not Gyra, not Armadale, the one before it, not Grafton, Glen Innes, that's the one, up in Glen Innes. So absolutely amazing place. So if you're up there in Glen Innes, is that where you are, Sally? Then it must be pretty cold up there in the mornings on the northern tablelands. But I did live in Armadale for a few years, so I know that space quite well. So look, if there's any more questions out there on life mastery, please do ask away, because that's what this show is all about. It's what keeps this program going, the show going, is when you ask me questions on all things life mastery, to really help you to come into deeper and more alignment with yourself. So I'm just going to sit here and just enjoy the, see if I can see a whale jumping for the next couple of minutes, just to see if any questions come through. What do the energy feel like? If you mean the energy here in Byron Bay, right now it's absolutely magical. The sun is shining, the waves are pounding, the whales are jumping, there's dolphins out in the ocean. I've had an amazing morning, and I'd say I'm probably in that sort of 95.5 paradigm at the moment, so it's pretty, that's all. So Sally's in Newcastle. I was down in Newcastle, Sally, about 3 months ago, giving a presentation at the surf club down there on the beach, just down near Newcastle. It was pretty amazing, the surf club overlooking that beautiful bay there and the beach down there in Newcastle. Beautiful, amazing energy down there too. Obviously, if we go under the covers of places like Newcastle and Byron Bay, if we go into the deep history of these places, with the trauma that happened here, with the original people here, we can go into some of that trauma work as well. But from a place of not going to that place, there's some beautiful energy here on this east coast of Australia. But also there's that underlying trauma that can arise as well. Byron Bay's a bit like that. Byron Bay, for those here, there's a big bed of obsidian underneath Byron Bay from the volcanic eruptions that happened here millions ago, and so the energy here is quite potent because of that underlying obsidian that's right under Byron Bay. And as I look at the Julian rocks here, the Julian rocks are there, if you can see it out in the ocean. I'm not sure because the sun's shining on the camera, but there's an outcrop of rocks out in the ocean here called Julian rocks, which is part of the volcanic eruption that happened here millions and millions of years ago. So a lot of people come to Byron Bay and they feel that vibration and struggle to be in Byron because of that pulse of the obsidian under. I love high energy. I'm a bit like a cat sitting on negative energy, and I feel that pulse. I love climbing Wollumban or Mount Warning and feeling the depth of that obsidian energy. But it's a very powerful place, Byron Bay. And I know a lot of places down the coast have similar energies, and Newcastle has a little bit of a similar energy to Byron Bay for me. So yeah, I can feel it. Yeah, look, when we tune into that frequencies, if you think about the Aboriginal people who talk about the song lines, And when we walk into nature and we follow the ley lines and the Harkman lines and the Benker lines and all those other energy lines we can follow, they're pretty amazing when we tune into them. Some of them, take us off frequency, but many of them bring us into frequency. Obviously, when we get junctions of meeting points, we can vibrate at a pretty high rate, and if we're not tuned in, they can throw us. They can give us a bit. I like, if you overload a gang plug, if you put a plug into electricity and have a gang plug, and you put 4 or 5 different electric utensils into that plug, we can blow a fuse. And if we travel up and down Australia and throughout the world, and we hit one of those meeting points where we have all the different energy frequent lines crossing, and we get those hot points, we can blow circuits. And Byron Bay is a bit of a circuit breaker for many people. Some people come here and really get their fuses blown because of that energy circuit blowout. So quite amazing. And some people just come in and go, wow, Byron, I can't handle it, it's so much friction energy. I'm a high energy person. I like high energy. For those that know me will know I'm pretty eclectic, and I'm pretty out there. So this energy suits me. I love high energy and love high frequency, but for some people, Byron and other places is just too much. So if you haven't been to Byron Bay before, come and sit and meditate here for a few days and tune in. But the calming effect of Byron Bay is the ocean. It's the whales, the dolphins, and obviously the beautiful beings that live here as well, the human beings. It's a pretty amazing community here, and I really love it. So anyway, look, I can chat about energy frequencies all day long, and if you haven't studied the energy frequency lines, it might be worth having a bit of a look at, because they do play a big effect in our lives, the positive energy lines, but also the negative energy, like mobile phones and all those different things. I've got a phone in my hand that I'm working on, but I've got EMF energy frequency harmonizers on the back of my phone, so I'm not in disalignment with those energy frequencies coming out of my phone. So it's about making the conscious choice to work with EMFs and energy frequencies in a conscious way. And I certainly have neutralizing cards on my phone, on my computers, and all the other things I use and in my home, so I don't get bombarded with those negative energies, and try to seek out positive energies. So Layla, I wish I had high energy. The question is, what's not allowing you to be in a high frequency? What are you doing in your life would be the question for me, of why you're not in a high energy space. Because we have a choice to be, and by high energy I don't mean running around all over the place at 300 miles an hour. I know people who are like really slow, contemplative, very phlegmatic in their being, work in a slow place, like librarians, and they walk from one shelf to the next, pick up and dust a book, but their frequency, their energy is really high. So high energy doesn't mean running around at 300 miles an hour like Adrian, but it's just, how do you hold a high energy frequency so that you can meet high energy frequency people and be in tune with them, so you don't get fried. So it's so Orgonite is a great neutralizing tool as well. We have a bit of Orgonite at home, and has its limitations from my perspective of what Orgonite can and cannot do, and is limited in helping the neutralize certain frequencies, but not all of them. So for me, it's all about dowsing and muscle testing to check out what Orgonite can work with and what it can't. It's a bit like the energy frequency cards I use. They're good for some things and not for other things. It's a bit like Orgonite. It's not an end-all for everything. It's a good energy frequency neutralizer for some things. So for me, I always test with my pendulum or by muscle testing to see whether that utility, that thing I'm working, is helping to neutralize or not. So it's not just hearsay. I don't just read a leaflet and believe it. I actually do the muscle testing on myself or on my family or my clients to really check it out for real. And how effective is it? Is it 50% effective, 30, 20, 10, 90%, 100%? Because even pieces of Orgonite are quite different in terms of the way it's manufactured, the way it's been produced, where did the Orgonite come from. Different deposits in the world have different frequencies. So for me, once again, it's not about being generic. I love to have that scientific mind to go, can I go down the rabbit hole with that energy frequency card or that Orgonite or whatever I'm using, to really get specific on what it's good for or what it's not good for. If I wear a necklace, an energy frequency necklace, it's good at doing what? Because it's not the end all, it doesn't do everything. It may not stop something, or it may not negate something, or it may not harmonize something. So for me, I never I like to test. I like to check it out for myself, and I think that's, for me, the consciousness. That's about empowerment. So rather than believing somebody else, I check it out for myself. I'll give you an example. I was given an opportunity just over 12 months ago to get involved with SWIG, Skyway Invest Group, that I've mentioned earlier on, in terms of financial literacy, because that was something that was keeping me in the 80-20 principle rather than 90-10, and I needed to address my beliefs, my understanding and my education around finance and abundance. So I made a conscious choice to go and do some study on that, and I have done that for the last 12 months. And I got an opportunity to buy some education packages to do some of that investing. And I was told there's some great new technology that's been designed, new transport systems. Here are some videos, here's some testimonials, etc. And I said, that's all well and good. It's great to see it on videos, and I believe it because it's real. But I'm actually going to fly to Belarus, near Russia, and go and see the transport for myself, to go and ride in the transport myself, to go and meet the CEO for myself, to actually ask questions myself, to go and sit in the room with the engineers myself. So I did, and now I know it's real because I went there. I tested it out, I asked questions, I got specific. So if there's one thing you take away from today, even if you're not asking questions, is how much more specific can you be in your life? Where do you need to move away from being generic to be specific, to bring in more specific consciousness? Because thinking is the highest form of spirituality. When we get into conscious thinking, spirituality doesn't go beyond spiritual thinking, conscious thinking. And I'm not talking about thinking in the cognitive sense, I'm talking in the spiritual sense or the cosmic sense. Can we get into cosmic thinking? Can we allow the mind to bring in cosmic thinking and thought? And that takes practice, many, many years of practice. And we can start the practice by asking conscious questions. And if you're listening to a question for somebody and it's generic, say, please, can you be more specific? And if you test that out for a week with everybody around you and ask them, sorry, I'm hearing you, and but can you be a bit more specific? Because if you are, I can be more specific in my answer to you. See what it does for your consciousness. I've been asking specific questions and answering specific questions now for over 20 years, and I do it with my family, with my friends, with my clients, with my students. And the change of consciousness for people around me who do that suddenly go, wow, I'm now thinking on a deeper level. I'm going to a more specific consciousness in my thinking. So try that one out. That's my gift to you today, is to get away from being generic and being specific. If I go and work with a medium, if I'm asking a question from somebody from the other side, I'll say to them, I'm really happy to work with you as long as you're not generic with me. So don't tell me tomorrow I'm going to meet my soulmate. Well, I'm actually already living with my soulmate, so that'll be a waste of time. But don't be generic. If you've got something specific to say to me, then I'm happy to work with you through that mediumship. But I'm going to ask very specific questions, and I want specific responses from you if you can get those from the other side. So I'll ask specific questions so I know that I'm working with a specific being or a specific person that's passed over, so that I know that they're the only ones that can answer me specifically. So it's a big test for many mediums to work with me because I'm very specific. So it's not a generic process. So I do check out people I work with, and I've worked with some beautiful, amazing mediums over the years who can be really specific with Adrian, with me. And when we get to that level of work, it's really powerful, like really powerful work. I get the messages I need, and they feel great because we have a rapport to each other on a very high conscious level. And I do that with the spirit beings I work with. I'm just really clear about who I let in and what I let in, and who and what those beings are, and I've become very conscious of who and what they are over the last 20 plus years. So I have a very clear process, a very clear gateway, a very clear boundary of what I let in and what I do not let in. So so a couple of little lessons in there for you if you're in that space too. Be discerning. Be discerning. And I share this story every week, the story of the three little pigs. The big wolf wants to come in, which is the negative energy, and it gets into the first house, puff puff, blow my house down, which is straw. Second house, puff puff, blow my house down, which is sticks. But the third house is the house with the three pigs, which is the physical, the emotional, and the mental, or the spiritual. in the same house, you know, with a big boundary, which is the bricks, and the wolf tries to come down the chimney, and their power burns that energy up, that wolf energy up, the negative energy up. So the Three Little Pigs is a very good, powerful story as a reminder of having that boundary. So unless it's invited, it's not allowed in. So if it's not invited, I do not let that energy in. So be discerning of who you work with and what you're letting in, and then you'll stay more present in your life. You won't get drained, you won't get the burnouts. So any more questions in it? I've been rabbiting it on for a little while. I'm in that sort of high energy frequency space in Byron Bay, so there is a lot of information coming through, because I'm really tuning in that high energy vibration at the moment. It's the sort of place I come in, it's like if I have one coffee it's enough, or half a coffee. If I have two coffees it's like whoa, buzz buzz buzz. So I really refrain from having more than one coffee in Byron Bay, because it's a pretty high energy place anyway, and I get into my my chai teas and my rooibos and non-caffeine drinks as much as possible in Byron Bay, because it's already high frequency. So any other questions in there? Any questions on life mastery, physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, vocationally, relationships, sexual, intimate, family? Remember, not about medium questions, so I'm not bringing through medium answers, but in terms of empowering you to get specific. So a little bit of a test for you. Maybe you can ask a question that's a bit specific for you to help you on your journey to bring yourself into more alignment. Because I don't know about you, but I love coming into alignment. Absolutely love it. So I'm just going to sit here and just tune into the ocean for a couple of seconds. Watch these people out there in the ocean swimming. And I will be joining them at 3 minutes past 1 after I finish this show. And I'll be having a quick half-an-hour swim in the ocean before I meet up with Paul from Temple Byron and go and have a lunch with him, and connect up with another beautiful soul here in Byron Bay. So I'm just giving you a moment just to tune in, see if there's a question for you. See if you have a question. Keep the show going by asking a question. So there's a bit of a question here, isn't there, for you, Layla? I wish I had energy. I wish I knew, what it was. So the question is, if you look at your lifestyle, physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, can you go to a new energy, high frequency with the food you eat? If you go to a shop to buy food, are you choosing high frequency food? Are you buying organic or biodynamic food? Because that's the choice. And if it's not available, are you picking the right fruit from the fruit in the supermarket? Are you muscle testing to say, which orange is the best orange for me? Which apple is the best apple for me? And are you going home and washing that fruit to get rid of some of the toxins? But, we're preferable, getting to the organic food, getting to high frequency food, because that's the choice. You go in the supermarket and come out with a shopping truck full of, junk, or you can come out with less food, more high frequency, that's going to be better for you. You're going to get more energy from it, more nutrition from it. I actually think it costs less in the long term, because I don't have to spend so much on the things to keep me well, like medication and all those other things. So my medication, my health input is through my food, through my nutrition. Occasionally I might need a bit of vitamin C or a bit of iron or some multivitamin tablets, but it's pretty rare, because I get that from my organic food. Choosing what drinks are going in. Is it organic coffee? Is it organic juice? Is it clean? Or is it full of toxins? Because that's what gives the vibration. I want to tell a little story. I'm just going to wait to see if there's any more questions coming through. But there's my teacher, for those that don't know, is a teacher called Rudolf Steiner. He was around from 1863 to 1925. That's when he died. And he gave over 3,000 lectures. He wrote 30 books. I've been studying him now for over 25 years. He's my main spiritual guidance, and I tune into him, often. And all my psychotherapy and training is based on Rudolf Steiner's work. My spiritual path is based on anthroposophy, or Steiner, for the last 25 years, and which is the Rosicrucian stream. And there's a great story that's written at the beginning of a book called Agriculture, which is all about biodynamic agriculture, which is a system of organics with a high energy frequency. And one of his students asked Rudolf Steiner a question about nutrition on the planet. And Rudolf Steiner gave a reply that was a bit unusual, because rather than saying, well, bite into an organic apple and get nutrition, he said what's missing for people in terms of nutrition is cosmic nutrition, because people are not tuning into the spiritual path. Because spirituality is its own nutrition, spiritual nutrition. And if we're not tuning into spiritual nutrition, we are nutrition deficient. And I've thought about that answer, that question, a very specific answer, very specific, that what's missing in terms of, human nutrition is the spiritual nutrition. So when I eat Byron and I make organic food, at some level I know I'm getting some cosmic energy coming through the food, and I'm biting into cosmic wisdom, cosmic energy, because it's clean food. It hasn't been tainted. So no enhanced food, no poisonous foods for me. Very limited. If I have to have it, obviously I have it, then I'll try and wash it. But that high frequency, Layla, is about what we choose to put into our body, how we choose to meditate, the people around us, where we choose to live, where we choose to go into nature. So very happy. And what I'm going to say to people, if you go to my website, adrianhanks.com, you can book in for a free 30-minute consultation with me to ascertain whether I'm a good person to work with for you in terms of, coaching and spiritual journeying or not. But if not, you're going to get something from that 30 minutes with me anyway. So I invite you all to jump on board, go to my website and book in for a free 30-minute consultation. You can PM me on Facebook, Adrian Hanks, or go to my website, adrianhanks.com, or you can make a contact to Sarah through a spiritual event, and Sarah will also get a message for me, because Sarah's an amazing human being who's got this show obviously going for us, and she will pass those messages on. But either way, please come and have a conversation to support you in that journeying, particularly if you want to get into that high vibration work, because you don't arrive at that overnight. Seriously, like this, if you want to raise your vibration, if you do it too quickly, you blow your circuits. There's a lot of people out there who go away and do work, and they blow their circuits because it's too fast, too soon. They don't learn to go through the different gateways or the different initiations to get to different stages. And it's like, people jump on their L plates and expect to go down the highway at 120 or 130 kilometers an hour without learning to overtake or to direct themselves through traffic. And of course, that's when accidents happen, then the crashes happen. So it's no different with spiritual work. We have to learn that there are different time frames. There is a time to be a learner. There is a time to put on the P plates and be the provisional. And then there's times to get the license, the first license. And then there's the next license and the next one. So we go, kindergarten, primary school, high school, college, university, degrees, PhDs. And that's a big, long process. If you think of that journey from kindergarten right through to university, that's a 20-year journey. And for me, spiritual mastery is a 20-year journey. When people have been on a single path for 20 years, or a couple of paths that blend to 20 years, then I believe people can, step into mastery. And that's when I love to work with people, when they're in that mastery space, not before, because I know they've really got something then. That's my own personal litmus test of asking people how long they've been on their journey. So, and just a bit of a joke aside, I love a bit of humour. I'm a little bit here, a bit of illumination above Adrian's head in my car, so I just like to throw in a bit of humour as well. So I can turn that illumination off now again and become human again. But when we illuminate ourselves, we get into that spiritual space, and we get into that different way of thinking, a different consciousness. We do shift into a different vibration, a higher energy vibration. So Layla, I invite you to give me a call. I invite you to come on board and have a 30-minute consultation with me, as with everybody else, and let's see if we can shift some of that energy for you to get you into a bit more high energy. So let's have a quick time check. So we've got 20 minutes left of the this 1 hour show. So I'm down here in Byron Bay, sitting by the ocean. I'm just going to show you again. Dolphins right there, the whales are right there. People looking past, all the holiday makers. I lived in Byron Bay for many, many years, and I love coming back down here for a visit. I've been down here for a couple of days, and it's just a wonderful place. very challenging place for a lot of people. I say the energy down here is pretty high frequency because of the obsidian layer down here from the volcanic eruption from Wollumbin or Mount Warning that happened a million years ago, and it put a big layer of that obsidian rock under the earth. So if you go into people's gardens here around Byron Bay and you dig down a couple of feet and you hit these big solid hard black rocks, and it's this beautiful big obsidian, you know, there's just millions and millions of tons of it right through the Byron Shire, all the way from through the Tweed Valley all the way down here. Because when that erupted, you know, all those millions of years ago, all the way up in Mount Warning, or Wollumbin as the Aboriginal name is, you know, it went for, you know, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of miles. It was one of the biggest volcanic eruptions on the planet over the last billion years. And there's some speculation or suggestion that this actual volcano could have been one of the volcanoes that helped to wipe out the dinosaurs, because it was such an enormous explosion when it went. You know, obviously it went several times, but in its final explosion, and Mount Wollumbin or Mount Warning is the core left. The caldera is the core left of that volcano, and it's, you know, many kilometers across. So it's a huge, massive volcano. It was incredible in size, and when it blew, the ash from that, you know, the fire from that would have been, yeah, just unbelievable. And down here in Byron Bay and all the way up through the Tweed Valley, particularly up around Tweed, you've got these great big hexagonal rocks that exploded and landed in the ocean. And as they landed in the cold water, it, you know, sort of froze them into space, into the water, and they are hexagonal in shape. So if you go up to into the Tweed Valley and go along the coast there, you've got these columns of hexagonal rock, millions of years old, and it's amazing because hexagonal is one of the natural shapes of when something expands and then cools, and it's incredible to watch that expansion into the hexagonal. It's one of the sacred forms on the planet, and when it came hot out of the volcano and landed in the ocean, it solidified into hexagonal rock. And it's pretty powerful to go and sit on those hexagons and do a bit of meditation into the energy of the volcano. So that's a good thing to do on the Tweed Valley up here north of Byron Bay. So look, I'm getting away a little bit. I'm in that high energy frequency of yarning away. So I do invite you. You might be just enjoying the yarn, I know I do, but if you do have a question, please do ask away on all things life mastery to help support you in coming more into alignment with yourself, physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, sexually, intimately, or whatever other area of your life is. So I'm just going to sit back and just see if there's any questions coming in. Any more from you, Layla? Layla, if you're still on and you want to go deeper down that rabbit hole with your questioning on getting into more high energy, then please do ask away and I can support you in that. The Byron Bay bus. So okay, so if you don't have a question for me, maybe I'll form a question for you. How's that? Let me form a question for those listening in live and for those that are listening to the recording of this show. It's amazing at the end of the week to see how many people have tuned into the show. Sort of averages around the sort of 400 or 500 mark. There's been a couple of times where it's reached over 1,000. I think the first week was 1,500. So it does get out. So as you know, some people tune in live, but there's many people through the week who listen to the recordings for a couple of minutes or sometimes the whole show, and tune in to get that energy frequency happening in the recording as well. And I think last week was 300 or 400 people. So it does get out. I love sharing. I love to illuminate. I love to challenge. I love to support people in going forward and expanding in their lives in whatever way that is. So I love being here every week on the show. So my question for you is, when you stop listening in after this show in the next few minutes or the next half an hour or hour, What's one thing you're going to change in your life? What's one thing you're going to bring into your life to make some positive change? Just one thing. So I'm going to ask you to do that now. I'm going to ask you to get a piece of paper and a pen and write that one thing down. What's one thing you can expand on in your life? Physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, financially, in relationship, in vocation, with family, with friends. One area, and what's that one thing going to be? Are you going to improve your meditation? Are you going to improve your diet? Are you going to drink more healthy water? Are you going to do more yoga? Are you going to take time out for yourself? So just I love to challenge, get that positive challenge happening, and ask that question. What are you going to do today after this show, or when you finish here, to change your life a little bit more positively? Really make the effort to do that. Write something down. What are you going to do? And maybe, sorry, just got to close my door. There's a lady jumping in her car. And if you feel like it, just type that in the messages below if you want to share that publicly as well. Just one thing that you might like to do to take yourself to that next level of consciousness, that next level of life, to bring yourself more into alignment with life mastery. What's one thing? See if you can stretch yourself to find one thing to work with. That'll be my little challenge for you today. I love positive challenge. I think it's really healthy. I know when I work with my own coaches, my own healers, and people I work with, you know, I love to have a session, and then I love to get what I call my homework afterwards. What do I have to take away from the session to work on, to work with? So that's what I want to do with you. I want to set up a bit of homework for you to go and work on something, with something, to bring yourself more into alignment. Because I haven't met one human being on the planet yet who's 100%. I know there's this phrase that you're good enough the way you are, but I don't really adhere to that 100%. Because for me there's always growth. Because that's where we learn, that's where we experience, is in the growth. Within the expansion. Within the education. So almost perfect but not perfect. That's what I like to think. So there's movement for me to grow. So that's why I love that 90-10 principle, or 95-5 principle. So I'll have some space to grow and adapt and develop. So I hope you've written something down for yourself on what you're going to do to challenge yourself, to grow, to expand, to be more conscious, physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, or any other area. And if you want some support in doing that, one thing I'll suggest to you is, if you pop along to my website, adrianhanks.com, and go to the store, go to the shop, there's several things in there, and there's a couple of free things in there to support you. A couple of free things in there, and one of them is the journal. So I have a Life Mastery journal that you can download for free, you print off yourself. If you want to take it to somewhere like Officeworks and get it bound, you can. Or you can buy the ready-made version. I'll post it at you. But if you just want a freebie, you can just download the sheets, and you don't even have to print it all off. You just print off a couple of pages at a time, and you can journal. And I suggest journaling in the evening after your day to ascertain where you've been during the day in what I call the 10 aspects of life. And then you can get that sense of where you've been during the day, and then what maybe you need to do tomorrow to take yourself up to the next level of that. So you might ascertain that during the day you hit a percentage of, say, 75% in terms of life mastery or living life, and you say, well, tomorrow I want to get to the 80-10 principle. Which area of my life, which of those 10 aspects or principles do I need to do something on to bring myself up? Physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, vocationally, in relationship. And it's a really good way to document and to follow your process, to follow your progress. And I've been doing that journaling now for a long, long time, and I know many people, who've got that journal and they've worked on it, and they've taken themselves up a notch or two because they're more conscious of their behavior and their actions, their thoughts, their feelings, their emotions, by journaling it. Because when we see it in front of us every single day, and we see the map, we see the graph, we reread what we've written, and we recognize, well, I'm sitting in the 75 or 80 principle, and I want to take myself up. Well, these are the areas where I can do that. So once again, I'm getting down to specifics rather than being generic. So rather than looking at life as a generic one big pool, we break it down into 10 aspects, and then we can focus in on 1 or 2 or 3 of those aspects that need the changes. And for me, I recognized over 12 months ago that the financial aspect of my life was letting me down a bit, because I wasn't fully conscious, I wasn't fully educated in that realm. I didn't understand the stock market, I didn't understand investment, I didn't understand the way the banks work, I didn't understand currency flow, I didn't understand trading, I didn't understand much about the fiat currency or crypto or any of those things, and making conscious choices about which I step into and out of. And that's been huge, because it's taken my conscious level up, because it was holding me back in the bigger scheme of things, in the bigger picture of my life mastery. So I sort of went from the 80-20 principle to the 85-15, and now I'm sort of aiming that next level up for myself to bring myself into more fuller consciousness. So that's a little bit of a positive challenge for you to do, is to look at the areas in your life where you need to bring in some homework, to bring in some, a bit of hard work. So hope that's there for you. So on that note, are there any insights, any questions, any thoughts for you to share? I see there's a few people on here listening in, watching in. So it's always great to get a bit of interaction happening. I really love it. And I must say, watching these people diving into the ocean right now, I'm going, whoa, I'll be in there myself in about 10 minutes. I'll be diving into that cool ocean, getting some waves, doing some body surfing. I was down here this morning at the lighthouse with my didgeridoo, about 8:30, playing into a small pod of dolphins, and the whales were out there too, so playing some beautiful whale sounds to the didge, and just absolutely stunning to watch them breaching and diving out of the water here. It's there's currently about I think there's about 50,000 whales now travelling up from Antarctica up into the east coast, up to Hervey Bay and places for the mating season, growing at a rate of about 10% a year. So I know when I moved up here 10 years ago, there were about 7,000 or 8,000 whales a year, and that's grown now exponentially every year by 10%. So over the last 10 or 12 years I've been here, that's grown from a population of whales migrating from about 7,000 or 8,000 up to 50,000 in over a 12-month period. And that's because the whaling has stopped, because people are more conscious of allowing that whale migration to happen. And what an amazing sight now to be at in the morning and to see 30 or 40 or 50 whales in a couple of hours, whereas even 10 years ago I might just see over a day a few. So that's totally changed now. People rarely see a whale now when they come to Byron Bay. It's just like, oh, it's whale season, there's a whale out there. And it's pretty amazing to see that population growth. And I hope we can start to have that consciousness around other animals on the planet too. I always say to people, it's great to save the dolphin and save the whale, but what about saving the tuna and saving the fish that are being eaten? Because they're being depleted too now. So it's about being more conscious of sustainable fisheries, sustainable farming. That's why I choose not to eat fish, because it's not sustainable. I choose not to eat meat unless it's organically sustainably grown. Not that I eat meat, it's like maybe once every 4 or 5 years that I might have a tiny piece of meat if I choose to eat it. But for me it's got to be sustainably grown and consciously farmed, rather than the generic poisoned processes that are in place. So it's about bringing ourselves into consciousness of choosing what to put into the body, so that we can hold that high frequency vibration. So any comments, any thoughts? I love to interact. So if you're on here, even just say a hi, Adrian, or just let me know where you are right now on the planet. That's always a nice thing to do, just to get a bit of a communication going. I love to communicate. So if you're on here, I see there's a few people sitting here, just type in hi, or just type in where you're currently sitting or standing or lying or meditating right now, and let's just see where people are from around the planet. So got a few more minutes left on the show, and then I'll be heading off to have a quick swim before heading off to grab some a really good organic lunch in Byron Bay with a good friend of mine. So very warm here. I'm sitting here in my car, and and it's pretty warm in here. I'm probably sitting in about a 30-degree heat here right now in my car, so I'm quite looking forward to diving in to that nice cool ocean. So yeah, a bit of a splash out there with another whale diving and breaching. What an amazing place. I don't know if you've ever been to Byron Bay, but it is a very amazing place to be, particularly down here at Main Beach. Sun shining on the water, people in the ocean, dolphins, whales. Because it's a very sacred place. It's a very sacred Aboriginal place for the Bundjalung people, and specifically the Arakwa people of Byron Bay, who are a small mob of the people who live down here. And there's still quite a strong presence of the Aboriginal people here in Byron. They still have quite a bit of a say. They have quite a bit of sacred land here still in the Byron Shire, and very still honoured in the community here. Got some good aunties and uncles here still speaking up and keeping that land sacred, which is just absolutely fantastic. So I do like to hold that space here in terms of that spiritual connection to the land, and honour the people of the past who walked this land, and also the people present, and also the people of the future that can walk through this land of all creeds and all nationalities too. Because Byron Bay, what I love about Byron is there's people from all over the planet converging on one place. So it's a global community happening in one space, and it brings back that idea that Byron Bay is a meeting place. It was a meeting place for the original people for tens of thousands of years. People would walk for hundreds of kilometers from different camps, from north, from west, and from south, obviously not east because the ocean's there. And this was a convergence place. This was a meeting place because it was such a powerful energy spot, and that's still happening. Maybe not quite as consciously because people are just coming here for a holiday from all across the planet, but people meet here. People come and they have meetings here from a global perspective. So Byron Bay still holds that space of being a very I call it a convergence place, where people come and converge and meet, and it is very powerful from that perspective. Yeah. So look, I'm coming up to my hour on the show, just a couple of minutes left here. So once again, I do invite you to go across to my website, adrianhanks.com, and go and get some of those freebies on the website. Go and have a look what's available. Go and have a look at some of the programs and courses that I'm running. And one of the courses that you may be interested in is next Monday evening, Australian Eastern Standard Time at 7 o'clock. I'm starting a 7-week course. So for 1 hour over 7 weeks, there'll be lots of interaction between those weeks as well with different connections. But for 1 hour a week for 7 weeks, I'm doing the 7 conditions of spiritual development. The 7 conditions of spiritual development to help people deepen their spiritual path. So it's a guided 7-week process with lots and lots of exercises, lots of homework of different spiritual aspects to help people to deepen their spiritual path. So if you're interested in doing a bit of a course with me over 7 weeks, that starts next Monday, 7 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time. And I've just switched over and just showing the ocean. Oh, that's actually quite nice. I might switch back again while I'm talking, just show the ocean. Julian rocks out there, which I've actually snorkeled at a couple of times, a beautiful snorkel spot. But just coming back here, Monday night, 7 p.m, the 7 conditions of spiritual development is on my website. It's also on Facebook as well as an event. If you just type in the 7 conditions of spiritual development, it's $160. If you need a bit of a payment plan or need something, just give me a call to get you on there. But it's a really powerful journey to really help you to get more deeply into that spiritual journey, that spiritual path. So that's available. There's lots of other things too, but please do give me a call to get your 30-minute consultation to support you on your life path in terms of all things life mastery. So that's me tuning out. If I've had my hour. It's been a great hour. I've chatted a lot, so I'm in a high frequency mode at the moment because I'm down in the high energy center of Byron, so I'm feeling that buzz. It started when I woke up at 5 a.m. this morning and did my 4K run up to the lighthouse and back, and played Didge, saw the whales, saw the dolphins, had a business meeting. Last night I did a presentation for Skyway Invest Group, which is the financial literacy. So it's been really full on. So I'm now going to sign off. I'm going to go and have a swim in the ocean, and I will tune in and say hi to you again next Thursday, midday, as always, with more of the Life Mastery Show. So love and blessings to you. Thank you for tuning in, and you have a beautiful day, afternoon, evening, wherever you are on the planet right now. See ya.